guys, what is up? My name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great day. Today we are here to talk about the worst books I read in 2020. Now before we start, there has been a lot of drama on Twitter about the worst books videos that have been going around for like 10 years now. Essentially what I'm going to say is that the books I'm going to talk about, one, are my subjective opinion of bad books, and two, has nothing to do with the author that has written these books. I'm not bashing any individual. I am just talking about what I think as a reviewer were not the best books I read this year. Now, contrarily to my best books of the year, we're not going to talk about 10 of them today. We're going to talk about 5 only because I had a pretty average to good reading year, and so not a lot of books like really put me off. But a few of them did. If you've been following my channel, you might know a couple of them. And we are going to go in order from like the least of the bad books to like the worst book. Most of these I don't have physically anymore. Actually, all of these I have unhauled. I don't keep books I don't like. So we're just going to put a picture up. Also, before we start this video, just know that you can navigate the video at ease. So if you just want to see the worst book I read in 2020, you can just use the little sections of this video to do so and just navigate as you please. Number 5 on this list is actually a middle grade book, and I'm not super harsh on middle grade. Like, this was a 3-star book, but out of all the middle grade books I've read this year, this definitely had to be the poorest of them all, and so it got a 3 stars, and that is Sea Strangers, which is the first book in the Greystone Secret series. And this book, if I have to be honest, I think the main critique I have for this one is just the writing style and the fact that the story was so predictable that I think that even if I was like a 10 or 11 year old, I could have guessed where this was going from the start, maybe even just by reading the synopses. When I got into this book, I was hoping it would be a little bit different. Now I'm realizing I never mentioned what this is about. Essentially, this is a story of 3 different siblings whose perspectives we all follow. So we have 3 different perspectives, and they are all like 2 years apart, and usually when they come home from school, they are welcomed by their mother. They don't have a father, and she works from home, so usually she brings out snacks and whatever, but when they come home, they actually find their mother to be super shocked and like frozen there, like frozen in place with like, oh my god, what is happening? And when they look at the news, it is basically that 3 children have been kidnapped. They have the same names, the same ages and birthdays as the 3 main characters we are following, and so they're like, what is going on here? Their mother won't answer any questions, and she has to leave for a work trip. So the kids are actually sent to live with this mysterious woman, and they try to uncover what it is that is happening to their mom and just the situation as a whole. The plot twist in here, so predictable. I could see it coming miles away, and even in some middle grades like Nevermore or The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane, I was still kind of on the edge of my seat even though I'm like 23 years old. And I do understand that I'm not the target audience, but I know that at that age I probably could have guessed it anyways, and I just feel like the pacing of this book was way off. This felt like a book that was setting up instead of a book that was telling a story. I get it, it's the first book in a series, but in my opinion, you cannot be the first book in a series setting up for the rest of the series, because what's the point if you don't engage your audience in the first book? No one's gonna read the rest of the series. Like, I'm never gonna pick up the second book, or God help me, I hope I don't, because I just felt so underwhelmed the entire time. I was just forcing myself to read it to get to the end of it, because I was reading it for one prompt for Believe-a-thon, which I'll leave a card in up here that so you guys can see more of my reaction to this book. But I was just so bored. The writing style is a little bit confusing. It's kind of bland. There wasn't enough action. It was just a book of setting up for other books, and that for me just doesn't bode well, and that's really why it's on this list. Do I recommend it? Maybe, not really. I have read so many other incredible middle grades. This book was not it. So, number 4 on this list has to be 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. there is a very big gap here between number 5 and number 4, because The Strangers, it was fine. 8 Perfect Murders I actually detested, and a lot of people have told me, oh, this is not their strongest book. That's fine. I'm not off reading Peter Swanson forever. I've heard he's a great mystery thriller book, and essentially I was like so excited for this book because of all the hype it was getting from thriller readers on the platform. This is a novel that follows this man who owns this bookshop, and in his early years of like owning a bookstore or working at bookstore, he created this list of the 8 perfect murders in literature, and he took 8 different examples and posted about it on a blog. And years later, he owns his own bookshop, and one day an FBI agent comes in and talks to him about this list, because what is essentially happening is that someone is replicating the murders he selected and put on this list and killing people off. And so our main character is trying to solve the mystery and try to help the FBI agent. But the first thing that is wrong with this book is the fact that it spoils so many other books, and it doesn't give you a warning. Like, it doesn't talk about it at the front of the book, it doesn't mention in the synopses, and so books I probably would have wanted to read have been incredibly spoiled for me, because they talk about the ways people die in them, they talk about the plot of them, and sure, they're like mainstream literature. If you're into classics, you probably read them already. There's some Agatha Christie, I think there's some other books in there, and I would have wanted to read a few of them, and I just hate and absolutely hate books that do that. What is the point of spoiling 8 other books without warning anyone? It's not like I knew the book was about other books, you know what I mean? Like, I thought maybe they would have been fictional or just mentioned in passing, not actually talked about and described, and like 8 different books were spoiled for me, you know what I mean? And that just put me off straight away. And I talked about this in my wrap up and the vlog I was reading it for. Was I reading it for a vlog? Anyways, I know I mentioned this, that I tried to warn people, and I had not seen one single reviewer try and put that disclaimer out there when they were talking about the book. And then other people read the book and kind of caught on, and then it was mentioned, but I just think it might have ruined the other books for them, and it's just not a book that's worth getting ruined for, you know what I mean? And my other problem with this book is the pacing and the ending. The ending of this book made me so incredibly angry, I wanted to burn the book. I just think that the first half of this book was honestly good. Like, it was a good middle of the road, even a little bit better than that thriller at the beginning. The mystery was engaging, I liked where it was going, I liked the creepy vibes and like the trying to figure out who exactly could be replicating murders from books, and I found that interesting. Like, the synopsis in of itself is super intriguing. The ending of the book was a shit show. The last second half, super disappointed. I don't even know what I read at that point. It was super rushed. Things were thrown out of nowhere. Like, I like my mysteries or thrillers to have a little bit of sense, a little bit of logic, and it was one of the first thrillers I've read, and honestly very poor compared to all the other books I read this year. There was just something about that book. I just feel like everything was set up nicely and it was set up for success, and then it totally failed. It is not even a 300-page book, and I swear the pacing and everything was incredibly off, and I didn't like the writing. The characters became very detestable in like 0.2 seconds. I don't recommend. Number 3 on my list is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra. Oh god, is the author even Alexandra? I'll put a picture up here. I'm totally blanking on the author's name. This I read for the Owls Readathon, which I really forced myself through that book just because, again, I was reading it for a readathon. Lesson learned, I'm not doing readathons anymore. If you've seen my goal videos, you would know. This book in 2018 I wanted to read because if you know me as a reader or a person, you would know I love anything that has to do with the sea, with mermaids, with sirens, pirates. I love it. It's one of the only versions of fantasy I will read, and I was incredibly excited because this is like a darker retelling of The Little Mermaid. It is inspired kind of like that. And the entire premise of this book is that we follow is it a mermaid or a siren? One of them anyways, who is like the daughter of the rain, like the person in Rain, like the person who controls all the other mermaids or sirens, whatever they are. We'll call them sirens for the sake of this video. And every year on her birthday, she goes out and kills a prince and takes his heart. And I think one time she decides to take a heart of a prince and it's not her birthday, and it causes this whole dilemma, and then her mother is mad and she wants her to go kill this one prince or she's never allowed to come back, whatever. And then we also follow the perspective of the prince she's supposed to kill. And I was so excited, but this book, I DNF'd the first time around and it should have stayed that way. We have no plot. I feel like this book dragged forever and ever and ever, and it just never got around to being interesting except the 50 last pages. And I was just so disappointed. There's no at-sea action, which I feel it lacks in a lot of books, but this one, the plot just wasn't there. There was no action. The setup was so incredibly predictable, which sometimes it's fine. It just did not work for me. The writing is very bland. I hated both of the characters. Didn't care for them. They could have all died and I probably would have been happy. I just think that the emotions that the people felt were justified half the time, that the plot and the plot devices were dumb, and it just felt so off for me. And this one is really hard for me to put into words, but I was angry while reading this book. I think it lacks in so many different areas, and even for someone who's a beginner fantasy reader like I am, I just read so many other books that I preferred, and I just think I should have DNF'd it. And again, I will link the vlog in the cards because I think I explained myself a little bit better. It is a feeling, I don't know, I might be the only one who feels this way, but sometimes you read a book and you have issues with them, but you don't know how to verbalize them, and that's just, that's what happened. Now we're on to the top 2 worst books of 2020, and we're getting into the problematic stuff. Like, the other 3 weren't necessarily problematic when it comes to the important stuff. Like, yes, spoiling books can be problematic, but it's not this level of problematic. We have The Guy on the Right, and I believe the author of this one is Kate Stewart. This is a companion novel series now, and I've heard some YouTubers really love it, and you know what, you do you, but I had issues. This is a book I read in my I Read Romance vlog, which I'll leave in the cards because I dissect this one very clearly, and I think it's worth the watch, in my opinion. Essentially what happened here is I was reading new adult college romances, and I decided to pick up The Guy on the Right. It is a new adult college romance about this boy named Theo who kind of reinvents himself when he gets to college, but he's always like the underdog compared to his roommate, who is super appealing and whatever, and he never ends up getting the girl. And then he meets this girl at a party one night and they hit it off. That's fine, it's very new adult, very predictable, but it's the kind of romance I like. The issues here are in the content of the book. We have Hitler jokes in this book, which truthfully made me go, what the? We are family friendly here, so I'm not gonna swear my head off, but I just, first of all, was very put off by these jokes, and I could not understand how they were thrown in a romance book and how the author thought it was correct. I would not hang out with people who make these jokes, and I would even less read them in a book and just think, oh, that was funny. And I think this was it even challenged in the book? I don't even remember. And my other critique of this book is that our main female character for Halloween decides to dress up as a black woman, and our main character is not black, and I just could not, for the life of me, believe she did that. And no one challenged it really, and it was just there, and it was supposed to be funny, and it's not funny. You don't do that. You don't dress up as a black woman on Halloween. Like, what on earth are you thinking? It's just, all these little details that were so incredibly problematic that just added up to me despising this book. I give more examples of this in my vlog where I kind of review it. I took notes down on my phone of all the other problematic elements, so if you're interested, I will leave it in the cards as I said, and in the description if I think of it. I was just so unhappy with everything that was in this book and how nothing of it was challenged, and it all sounded like it was so normal and meant to be humorous when in reality none of these things are funny. I'm not going to go into much more of a rant, but that book is just filled with problematic things. And oh yeah, there's also like drug use, and then they use a vehicle, and it's just so many things wrong with this book. So many things, and I would encourage you to go see my vlog if you're interested at all in this companion series. And the #1 spot goes to Vlog Shot by Kennedy Ryan. Now I will say I will try reading Kennedy Ryan again. I am still very interested in her books, and I think the way that this author writes is great, really. But I had so many issues with the content, again, of this book, because essentially what is happening is that we have these two characters who we follow both perspectives, but we're supposed to root for these characters when essentially their relationship is based off cheating. So what happens is that we have this male character who I don't even remember how they meet or their connection, but the male and the female character in here are related, and they're both part of the same industry, which is basketball. And this boy in this book has his sight on this girl, and he's going to do whatever it takes and move anyone out of the way to get to her. And I believe they're both like basketball agents, like they sign on clients. And our main female character isn't actually in a relationship with one of her clients, and ends up cheating on the client with our male main character who we're supposed to root for. If you don't know me, you would know that trust and loyalty are like two of the things I value most in life. And so this book just, I couldn't get through it, because how on earth are you supposed to root for such an unhealthy romance? Like, how am I supposed to cheer on a guy who's trying to get a girl that's already in a relationship by cheating with her, sleeping with her, and none of it is confronted? It's like the main female character is trying to justify it internally and saying that like it's bad, but she keeps doing it, and he literally says in the book that he would do whatever it takes, and he doesn't care who he has to move in order to end up with our main character. And it was just the most unhealthy, toxic book I've read in a long time, and it just makes no sense to me that I'm supposed to want them to be together when both of them are bland and toxic on their own, and even worse together. So those were all the bad books I read in 2020, or actually the worst books. I will have a most disappointing books also coming, but just know that you should steer clear of these books, and I'm sorry to you if you've read them. You might like them, and that's totally fine and valid, but I am donating all of these books and don't want them on my shelves, essentially, is what I'm saying. Again, this is not to attack any authors, and I'm not saying that these books aren't for some readers. We all have different opinions, but that's just mine. That's the tea I'm spilling today. Let me know in the comments if you have any books that were disappointing, or your worst books of the year if you're willing to share, and I will see you again very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.